Thanks for having me this afternoon. Yes, I have a background in law, and I previously worked in the finance and engineering sectors in Europe and the United States. Building EWAKA is a very personal story to me. It's not only about being part of the solution. I've spent most of my life in Europe and in the United States, and building Iwaka for me is being part of the solution, but also paying it forward. When we started really on a mission to introduce e-bikes to the continent. But we quickly saw that the mission was greater than that. And we decided to focus on last mile logistics inefficiencies on the continent. And e-bikes are just a way to provide an affordable mode of transport for the purpose of improving last mile logistics. So we have durable e-bikes and we have smart fleet management services that integrate IoT technology and data-driven fleet management decision making. So the technology, as I just said, is really like integrating state-of-the-art IoT technology in our batteries and in the frame of the bikes, together with communication protocols that enable us not only to do real-time tracking, but also to manage the assets remotely. We also use fleet management software built in-house to monitor performance, optimize routes for our riders, but really to give our clients the kind of transparency they need to ensure that they not only know where their goods are at all times, but they can also inform their own clients about the estimated time of arrival of their goods. So ultimately, it provides reliability and sustainability in the last mile logistics space. How have we changed people's lives? So far, we have created over 600 rider jobs, and a lot of people focus just on the rider jobs. But in order to be able to create those rider jobs, one needs to be able to deploy the bikes. So we've assessed that for every bike deployed, e-bike deployed, we create about 2.2 jobs. It starts with the assembly of the bikes. We have a large technical team for maintenance and preventive maintenance and corrective maintenance of the bikes, but also for repairs. And of course, you have the rider jobs. Each of our riders is estimated to support 4 to 6 people. So you can do the math. I think we've touched over 200 lives as in the last year and a half that we've been in active deployment. So our vision for e-mobility on the continent is quite clear. I think the fact that two-wheelers have overtaken the transportation space in most African urban centers is already a sign that it is needed because of not only traffic, but also because of the increasing urban population. So for us, we believe that introducing state-of-the-art durable two-wheelers that are electric is not only about the two-wheelers themselves, but it's also about a clean mode of transport and a mode of transport that can actually replace the use case that the motorcycles have made prevalent. So for example, carrying passengers, but most importantly, carrying goods. Our bikes are used to carry goods that are on average 20 kilos or less, but they can also carry 60 to 100 kilos if necessary. And with our cargo bicycles, you also do not need a driver's license, which makes it also more accessible for people who have less money, but also for women who prefer to ride bicycles instead of motorcycles. So for us, we feel that e-mobility has the potential not only to improve affordable transport, but really to enhance certain services and to create jobs. And with this, we believe that we lay the foundation for a more sustainable and connected future, not only in the transport space for goods, but also in the commute space. Yeah, so how can the continent's use be made to feel part of the green economy? It's essential, right? Half, if not three-quarters, of the African population is young, under the age of 30. Our riders and our staff are 80% of them are under the age of 30. And so it's the e-mobility gives us the opportunity to not only engage people in these in the jobs and in the space, but really to make the green economy accessible and relatable. We're talking about digital marketing, we're talking about sales, you're talking about the technology. We offer training programs. We are creating pathways to new economy jobs, and we are constantly looking to the youth to see how they actually integrate these bikes into their lives. And we've actually learned from them. So I feel that e-mobility is really, it connects us as Africans not only to the new world, the new economy, but also we are able to shape and change it because of the way that we use these vehicles. So government, I mean, I think the government has a crucial role to play in first by creating enabling policies, incentivizing green investments. I think governments are not doing as much as they could, as much as they should. It's not only about facilitating access to investments, but just making it a little bit less difficult for us to be able to introduce these vehicles for testing purposes. We know that a lot of these vehicles were manufactured, created, designed for other spaces, for other countries, for other continents. So a lot of what we are doing, the startups in the space is very experimental. So it'd be good for the government to create an enabling environment. There's also, of course, infrastructure that needs to be built. I think there's a really big role there for government to play by fostering this kind of supportive environment. Governments will give us the means that we have to actually do the job creations that they are supposed to be doing. So I think the government is essential in driving this green economy forward. So what keeps me excited about it? I think there's just so much to do, right? Looking back on the last 3 years since we started, we spent a year and a half almost prototyping and trying to understand the space and what was needed. And we just realized that we even with our product, we have 3 different bikes. We are just touching the tip of the iceberg. I mean, there's 1.4 billion people on the continent, and there's over 20 cities that are 10 million and more, right? So there's just so much to do. There's also so much potential in the peri-urban and rural areas for electric mobility. So I'm excited about what we can do. I'm excited about the prospects of manufacturing coming to the continent. I think for most of us who started by importing parts from other countries, we realized that at the end of the day, the skill set needs to be local. And so we've also started, we've always had an assembly plant, and now this has become even bigger with training young people in e-mobility, maintenance and repair and assembly. I think it's just exciting to know that there's still so much to be done. We're building an ecosystem, and I can see a future where we can design vehicles that are actually the type of vehicles that are required by by not only our current infrastructure, future infrastructure as well, but also the needs that we have in the city and in the rural space. Um, yeah. Do you have any advice for other green entrepreneurs? Yeah. So I was just telling someone this morning that it's hard. It is hard to build anywhere, but I think building in Africa is especially hard because, as I said before, um, we're building an ecosystem, right? But I think for all green entrepreneurs, I think the fact that it's not just about reducing CO2, one of the main benefits. But with e-mobility, we are touching so many aspects. We are creating jobs, we're bringing new skills, new know-how, transferring skills. With manufacturing, there's going to be even more potential for Africa, but improving livelihoods, right? Like with bikes that are lower in cost from a total cost of ownership perspective, allow our riders and our users, our businesses to actually keep more money in their pockets, and to improve the lives of not only their staff but also their families. Also, with our model, we are able to introduce products like insurance products, and also financial literacy, for example. These are things that are made possible by e-mobility. So I think for all green entrepreneurs, I want to say brace yourself. The road is bumpy. There's a lot of ups and downs, but there's a lot of reward in seeing the impact that we are having on the continent. Oh yeah, the Africa Green Economy Summit in February. It was fantastic. It was really a great experience. I think it was very well organized. People coming from across the continent. The panels were really well staffed, and the questions and discussions were very interesting. I think it's really a valuable platform, not only for entrepreneurs to be able to showcase their work, but also to make connections. I met a lot of people that I on the continent, and I was able to also learn a lot from other pitches and other innovative entrepreneurs. I think such events on the continent are crucial. I think there's a lot of events where you feel like it's always a little bit of the same. The way that the Africa Green Economy Summit was organized was a little bit different, because you had the panel discussions, you had, some of the local entrepreneurs being able to exhibit their products, which is really good for us who are not from Southern Africa to see. But also being able to meet people from other parts of the continent, being able to have those real conversations, the variety of the topics, and understanding a little bit how far ahead certain countries are and how much more others have to do is an important. It's really important to be able to meet on the continent to have these conversations. So yeah. I think we should continue to have such events. I think they're a little expensive, and so there should be more thought given to how to make it more accessible to entrepreneurs, especially those of us who are independent. Do I have a message about the role of women in the energy transition? Yeah, so women are key drivers of change in any sector, right? And I think for Africa, this energy transition is absolutely of primordial importance, right? And women are usually at the center of it because you have energy. Access to energy in household that impacts women and children more. You have, in the e-mobility space, there's a huge focus on buses and on trains, but the reality is that half or the backbone of our industry is really the 50% of the population that is women, right? And so being able to have women be part of the design of the vehicles and the direction that this energy transition will take is very important. So I really encourage, you don't even have to do much to encourage women to be part of this. In our company, 60% of the staff is women, and it's really not intentional. It just so happens that there's a lot of women that are trained in these areas, in engineering, in technical spaces, in sales and everything. And just being able to bring women to be part of the decision making is very important in the way we're going to shape this transition on the continent. How big a challenge is finance as an entrepreneur? I think finance is very important, right? So there are two ways of looking at it. When we look at some of our competitors or other stakeholders in the space who've gotten enormous amount of funding, right? Of course, we wonder, what is it that they are doing different, right? We're having the same conversations, we're seeing the same people. So there's something to be said about access to financing for African-led startups. But I think for us, very early in the process, we realized that we weren't going to be getting, the millions that are available in the space initially. So it forced us into a very disciplined approach to our financing and a very focused, unit economic focused approach. Right. So one can make it into something really helpful, right? So we were able very early enough to assess the right unit economics, the right business model, look at our revenue streams very critically, focus on the things that we knew we could do well and we could scale, and leave the others on the other side. It was only 2 months ago that we got our first warehouse. We were not able to afford getting a warehouse, close enough to Nairobi that would make sense. And so it's so important to understand that financing is not everything. It's also what you do with it. So having had that, what I call that dry spell that forced us to be very disciplined, I think now we're ready for the financing. And I think now the question for us is, are investors serious about African-led entrepreneurs like ourselves? Are they really interested in looking at those that have actually shown that it is possible to deploy and it is possible to have profitable models? I think that is the real question, right? I think that there is a lot of money in the space, but the money is available to some and not to others. I think that's a bigger conversation. We also have been forced to be very innovative about the type of investments that we're looking at. I think there's an abundance, for example, of debt, which isn't ideal for a startup on this continent, especially with all other things like currency exchanges and inflation being so unpredictable. And so there should be really a lot more grant money and a lot more equity type structures available, and as well as an understanding of the fact that building a business on the continent is not the same as building a business in Europe or in the United States. it takes longer. It requires an understanding of the economic environment, an understanding of the social environment, and VCs in particular tend to push for certain returns too early, and that can cripple a business in the continent. So yeah, I think that's a bigger conversation. Yes, so EWAKA is committed to leading Africa's e-mobility revolution. So we welcome partners in all spaces, customers, investors, other type of technical partners who share this vision for a greener and more sustainable future for the continent to join us in creating lasting impact, not only in transport, but also in services in this space. Thank you so much for having me.